Welcome back to the most horrific. Who? I should have called this the mouth gas channel. Oh, see what I mean? Gosh. Welcome back to the most horrific channel in YouTube. And a little thing called Parent. And and apparently this is the Brainsville channel. The wonderful thing with Tigers. The tails are made out of spring. The tails are made out of rubber. Anyway. Okay. Thanks. Thank you for sticking with me so far in here. If you're new in here, or if you're crossing paths on YouTube and just happen to have stumbled into this, this jungle gym of a channel. Hello, hi, how's it going? Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. And now for a topic that is pretty scary. More confusing than scary, actually. Parenthood. Parents. Parents being so confusing that it downright hurts. Oh boy! If you don't have nightmares about the confusion, if you don't have nightmares about confusing parents, you're gonna definitely have some after you watch this. Because that's what I'm here to do. Give all your nightmares about how you're, because that's kind of my job in here, to knock you off your feet, give you nightmares about how things really are, give you the nightmares about certain things, but in a rather like rubbery way, like I'm gonna do. I mean, I don't mean to give you nightmares, but it comes, but like the undertow was kind of like making you realize things, scare, not necessarily scaring you, but making you think about, things that people are either taking for granted in life or not really like paying attention to. So if it comes across as scaring you, you know, like you have to at least green light some of these things, like like if anything that would confuse you, and da 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 da, just it's a channel. It's a fun channel, but it's also it's also a very I run a very I'll put it this way: I do not run a fairy tale Mother Goose channel in here. I'm either speaking up for things, or I'm trying to like help, or I'm trying to credit um, certain things that really need to be like, you know, stepping up to the, you know. But anyway, I don't want to let my mouth run my whole body here. Let's get going with this. Being Parents being so confusing that it just downright hurts. Being now being now for less of you, now for less now now for most of you who have parents or still living with your now for most of you that have still have parents, or for anybody now for most of you who still have parents, or you're still living with your parents, or if you just you know not really little kids like 3.5, but like uh uh mid like like grade four, like grade 4 and 5 kids, like middle school kids. this this is for you. This is going for, this is going to you. This is, this is for the mother. This is for the kids. This type of a video is going to be probably going out to a lot of you, uh, middle school kids that probably need a nudge or a real good kick in the arse when it comes to knowing what's between, and I should probably slow down here what I'm saying, because I want you guys to get me, the first time. How's it going, by the way? And by the way, this is going out to all you kids that are either are in middle school or approaching middle school, like getting ready for it. If you're no, yeah, her parents are usually all parents are usually confusing as all heck, and but that's their job, their duty as parents to be confusing. Okay, that's the duty of the parent, to be confusing as all hell, or heck, if you don't like that word, like I have not met or seen a parent that wasn't confusing. It's like, to be honest, to be honest, because I was a kid at one point, and I think I still am. Just because I'm in my 30s does not mean I'm not still a kid at heart. But when I was a biological kid, and I'm not gonna do anything to set my, I didn't come in here to talk about my parents. I came in here because I know that others, either going to middle school, like they're on their way there, or they are in there, and I think you guys know already that your parents are confusing. I'm just trying to give you the little nudge on the shoulder, the, that extra kick in the behind to kind of bring out the realism of this ordeal of the confusing parent. Now parents are just naturally confusing by nature, okay? By nature, like they didn't start out as that. There were kids at a point too, like back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and they didn't, and their parents were probably way more confusing than parents today. But it's not nothing for me to say that out loud. This is to help understand the nature, and not just the nature, but like the reality of a parent, of a parent's peculiar and confusing ways. I have not heard of a parent that wasn't confusing as well bloody heck. In fact, that's why kids are people. In fact, that's why kids grow up to be who they are. Because if it wasn't for their parents being confusing, there wouldn't be any kids. Like, we wouldn't be alive if it weren't for we as the kids wouldn't be alive today if it wasn't for our confusing parents. Like, I'm not picking sides. I'm not picking sides here. I'm just saying, like, parents have their own thing, and kids have their own. Parents and kids have their own ways around things. Of how they carry themselves. The the kids are nearly well the the kid, and I'm not talking like 4 years old. That's not a kid in my like. That's not really well. Maybe actually 4 years old is a kid. Sorry about that. Sorry. I I think I was confusing that with with a 2.5 year old, which oddly enough is still like an infant. You know, we're not. But when you get to the ages like 4 and 6, there's there, that's that's the kid. Those are the real ages of, or those are the ages when you're really a kid because the kid because the infant things are gone. You know, the bottled milk is now considered just a flop, and no longer usable. And the kids, you know, and you're out of those, and you're away from those like Pampers, diapers, and all that, which which is oddly enough ridiculous enough, which is oddly enough not very like as comfortable as they're advertised. Yeah, they're advertised as comfortable, but to the infant, they're, it's not really relevant. The comfort level, and it's not really a comfort level until you're like 2 years out of them. That's when they would be comfortable, but we don't keep wearing them. We don't keep wearing them. So the like for anybody in diapers right now hearing this, I just I just want you to I just want like for anyone who's still who's fresh on the scene and is wearing diapers, do, don't take it the wrong way, all right? Of what I'm saying. Don't. Please don't, what I'm trying to tell because what I'm trying to say is that they're not really comfortable to the infant until you know until they are out of them. You know, For, like like diapers become comfortable to the infant when they're on the way out of wearing them. That's when they become the most comfortable. And I'm sorry to say this. I'm really sorry to. In fact, I am sorry to say this. If diapers are only comfortable when they're not being worn anymore. That's when they're the most comfortable. Because the whole time you're in them, how can you tell if the infant is comfortable in their diaper? Like I know, kids are smart, and babies are even smarter. You know, I mean they like you know babies like infants they're smarter than average kids. And then when they become kids, like 3, 4, 6 years of age, then the diapers are really comfortable because they're not being used anymore. They're not being worn anymore. So you know, and that's not to confuse anyone here. I'm just merely saying that that's when they are the most comfortable. When they're not being worn anymore. Anyway, I pick up my green tea, my decaf green tea with salt in it. Oh yeah. Anyways, I didn't come here to tell you all of that. Yeah, I don't know. That's all right. That's all right. I'm what I'm really here to talk about is like the the amplifiers in a parent's love, and or not really their love because their love is fine, but the amplifiers every kid's mind of what they have collected over the years of their parents. As being confused, as being like regular Joes, and they're confused, and to the kid, to the view of the kid, the parents don't know what they're doing. But that's only the viewing of the. But that's only the eyes of the kid. The eyes of the parents. Now here's where things get creepy confusing. The eyes of the parents are like, isn't that cute? He thinks I'm confusing. Or she thinks I'm confusing. So cute. Now, in, in a nutshell, every kid wants that back. Because, now, in a nutshell, sorry for getting loud. In a nutshell, every kid wants that back to a certain, like, degree. They want to be, they, they want to be cuter. Sorry, they want that back to a certain degree. Like, oh, isn't that cute? They think we're the confused ones. It's like, oh, isn't that cute? He just made a fist at me. Wait a few years. Wait a few years. It won't be cute after that. It will not be cute after that. They'll be like, you threatened to punch me with that? You threatened to punch me with that thing? You need a timeout. No, it's not cute anymore. And that's not to scare anybody. Have your fun. Have your fun. But everything has to come down the line. You know what? What was cute originally when you were just a kid might might be more of a the parent saying like, okay, like, you need a timeout. I don't care how young you are, you need a timeout. No, but talk about boring, huh? No, I talk about pretty boring, and maybe in a lot of ways shocking to see that. You need a timeout for something that used to be cute. Jeez, like, isn't it like that's the most confusing thing ever? Coming out of an adult, especially your adult parents. They originally thought it was cute when it was cute, and now if you do this, when you're and now if you do this when you're age 10, oh my god, don't do, don't even get me started. Don't even get me started. When you're 10 years old, you're down the drain. If you do this once, like, more more confusing bullbap, more confusing than we were. You know, the kids, it's like the goosebumps. It's it's like the goosebumps stuff. It's it's always the kid's fault, but never the monster's fault. It's like the R.L. Stein goosebumps stuff. It's always the kid's fault. It's never the monster's fault. And it was the monster that did it. You know, I mean, it looks pretty good in writing, but after you get the final effect, like, it looks pretty good in writing, but when you get the final effect, it was, the other way around. What? You think I'd be smart enough to get away with this? No. Come on. The parents in the R.L. Stein Goosebumps stuff are used. They're not exactly useless. they're not exactly useless, but they don't realize or know how to separate what the kid did from, oh, that was the monster's doing, huh? It's not right. It's like it's not exactly wrong of the parent to think that, but if it was their kid that did it, then it might. It's it's not necessarily wrong of the parent to assume it was their kids, the kids that did it. You get that? Like you get that more in reality. Like you get that more in real life than you got in the all. Like you get that more in like reality. Like you get that more in real life than just in in oil. Like it seems like the Goosebumps universe collides with the way things are being done in the real world. It's the kids' fault. It's the kids' fault. They did they did this. Yes, I well in well well in a well in well for argument's sake, I guess that's one way of looking at it. But come on, like, was it really the kid that did this? I I do think so. I I don't think so. The kids kids are usually smart and they are smart. It's getting it's getting the parents to realize that no, I didn't do this. What are you talking about? I didn't do this. How how could I create all this chaos in 2 hours? Like, that's pretty redundant of you to think that. When in reality it was the monsters doing. And this is not just the goosebump stuff. Okay, this is not just the goosebump stuff. That's the you know it's in today's world. You know what? Do you think I did this in 2 hours time? Do you think I could have done this? And the parents usually and the parent or the parents are usually like this. How do you room? You know, like, jeez, go to your room. Like, that's the advice you got. Like, how confusing is that? They couldn't think of anything clever to say, so all they had was go to your room. I don't want to see you for the rest of the day. Like, that's not just confusing. That's the mother of all confusion. I don't want to see you for the rest of the day until this mess is cleaned up. Boy, is that a goosebumps. Man, is that a goosebumps. Man, is that ever a goosebumps reality? Like, oh, like like do do forget. Like I mean, let's not forget here. The R.L. Stein world is very connected to the world today. And the Nightmare Room, and which is and and the Haunting Hour series and the Haunting Hour movie. How it's it is not connected. It That stuff is surrounded in today's world. The way kids and teenagers think that their parents are complete loser material. It's not. It's not that they are loser material. It's just the view of the kid or the teenager. It's their view of it. And I'm not saying they think of their parents as that, but there's a bit of a neurality there. There's a little bit of a neurality that is always in the back of every kid's and teenager's mind is, well, my parent, the parents didn't do this to me. It's my view of them. Like you know, it's the view of the teenagers and kids in that stuff, and in today's world, like who, like how do you suppose kids and parents half the time don't get along with each other? Simple. We're all connected in the R.L. Stein way of life. You know, who, like, go figure. Go figure. Like, no, no. Yeah, like like it's all connected in the R.L. Stein, verse, if you want to call it that. And when good girls go bad, that movie, that book, again, again, it's never okay. That's the parents sitting down and saying, okay, what do you think happened? They never get that part of it. It's never the parent sitting down with the kid and saying, well, in your, like, how do you get around, like, what is your view of this? That that's why R.L. Stein has written the parents as, in his words, useless, because they don't because they don't sit down to reason with their kids of what really happened. That's why they've been written as that, because they don't know what really happened. They weren't there when the monster took control over this and that. They don't know what happened. Sounds a little like today's world, or a lot like today's world. The kids, or the 13-year-old doesn't know how to talk to the parents without sounding, you know, without sounding and looking like uh like they just came back from like they just came out of a cave or something, and the parents don't know how to really talk to their kids without making it sound like they're, you know, the spacemen that came back, that came down from Mars, like, no, yeah. The kids don't know how to react to it, what just happened, and they saw it happen. The parents are very surprised at the kids' behavior when it wasn't even the kids' behavior to begin with. But that's all they got. They don't mean to come off like that, but they but very rarely does the parent see the arse or the tail of the monster that just destroyed the house. Like, that's R.L. Stein's work in that stuff. He's made the parents like either invisible or they're there and they're no help. That's R.L. Stein's work. They're there and they're really no help. Or hello, my friend. From something Bell, Ireland. The luck of the Irish here. Thanks for joining this big giant. Thanks for joining this big giant mess called. Thanks for coming into this big giant mess of a YouTube channel. But like no, but like yeah, like in today's world, it's just like an R.L. Stein book. It's just like an R.L. Stein movie. The kids are actually the real heroes, while the parents are off at a party somewhere, or they're doing some odd thing, like around the house, like. Moms and dads are crazy. No. Yeah, they're crazy. They're as crazy as a pool without any water in it. They're as crazy. Yeah, yeah. Parents are as crazy as a pool without any water in it. Um, which is, which I guess is, which I guess is mutual. But anyway, But anyway, like like I got my side of it out of me. You from America, my friend? Uh, well, one of my parents came from uh, north of here, so I guess that makes me an American. Um, I gotta figure out the genealogy. I guess I guess I better figure. Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, I guess I better figure out the genealogy there. I mean, I'm Irish. I got. Well, actually, my name is Irish. The proud name of Brendan. So that's as Irish as. So that's as Irish as me. You know, that's pretty Irish if you think about it. Me being named after the saint, and the Irish, to a degree, has a yeah. Anyway, you like you like you like Irish people, my friend? No, I well, I haven't met too many of them, but I like, but I do like them quite a bit there. You know, like I've seen them in movies and so on, and very rarely have I met anybody from I from Ireland, but yeah, yeah, I would say yes, I would say I like them a lot. Uh, by what I've seen in movies and not just in movies, like I've seen maybe a couple in my life, but time, but what I've seen, you know, I what I think of them is very like what can I say? They're people, you know, they're people. It, like a big love, a big love from Ireland, my friend. No, well, well, the music is pretty fantastic. The music is pretty fantastic, and and yeah, the music is pretty fantastic, and and I like the occasional green water. In fact, I love that. So yeah, yeah, yeah. I would say in my heart um, there's an Irish patch on my heart. Yeah, I would say that because I would say I have an Irish patch in my heart. In fact, I do. I do. You know. So yeah, I got. I guess I got an I do have, in fact, an Irish patch in my heart. But like anyway, let's get back to our. Can you do? Can you do any Irish dancing? Well, I'm not sure if you can call this Irish dancing, but I'm not sure if you can call it that. But this is not very good. But hey, this is only my interpretation. So it's, it's brilliant. What the tea to tea. Anyway, okay. Let's get back to our thing here. Unless you really want me to go more, no, yeah, um, more Irish on you. Um, well, anyway, parents are call me an old-fashioned nitty here. Uh, c- Call me an old-fashioned nit here, but I think I think parents are pretty fantastic, and at the same time very confusing because I haven't like I haven't seen or heard of a kid. I haven't seen or heard of a kid that didn't think their parents were like somewhat weird, or you know. I think parents are very confusing, but they're also very fantastic as well. Because like I haven't seen or heard of a kid that didn't think of their parents as weird, or or somewhat kind of confusing. There, like parents are very old and very weird. Old, old. I old, old. I think I I think you mean older because um I've seen parents that are like 35 years old, and you know, I've been around them, 35, 45 years old. That's not very old. I I think what you're referring to is like um 65 and 75. That would be old, you know. So yeah, or like older than old. I think is what you meant because I've seen, like I've been around parents. I talked to them. Uh, my father, my my father, my my father has electric. Well, okay. My parent. Um, well, my dad has Alzheimer's. My father has Alzheimer's, but that doesn't mean that he can't be confusing with or without it. So you know, like when I was a kid, like a biological kid, and I'm not trying to put this on me really, but I I always considered my father, like reasonably confusing, But 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 that's me. That's me. I'm not talking about every kid. I'm not talking about like God bless. Yeah, God bless our dad, my friend. God. Okay, okay. I'm uh I I'm not so sure about the terminology on that because I think I think I think between God and country, I think there's a line and rule there of parenting, but I think between God and country, there's a line of parenting, a type of parenting that I haven't heard of yet. But no, yeah, yeah. I suppose I would agree with that. Um, but like, I have not seen a kid yet that said that that their parent, like, I haven't seen or heard of a kid that didn't think of their parents. I'm saying, I'm saying I will. I'm saying that I will that say a prayer for our dad, my friend. No, I okay. Now that is Irish of you, very Irish, because now that is very Irish of you because I think I think every parent needs that. But I wouldn't be praying for my parents to be not confusing. I would, but there's no cure for being confusing. You know, parents should be glad to know that they are confusing, because I haven't seen a kid complaining that their parents are confusing, and I haven't seen a parent yet that didn't think their kids were not confusing, because that's just the way of life. Like I've never seen a parent or a kid think of one another as not being, you know, you can be a kid, you can be a parent, and still be confusing. You know that should be that should be a gift. That should be a really good thing to be. You know, and I'm not saying a kid can't be like, Dad, why is why are you so confusing? It isn't about that. It isn't about that. It's about the kid's view of that parent. That's important. Is that if you grow up with that view, really what you're doing is accepting the fact that your parent or parents are very confusing. And guess what? That's totally cool. Right? That is totally cool that parents have a role in being confusing, because if they didn't, they wouldn't be parents. You know, they would they parents would not be parents if they weren't confusing. You know, so you have to, day in and day out monitor that. You know, like parents are just naturally confusing. You know, and this shouldn't be taken that like it's a personal insult. Like parents should not be taking that as an insult, because even though it sounds like an insult, it isn't. It's just saying like, Dad, you confuse them, as opposed to, oh, you're so confusing. Like you're the idiot at the house. No, no, no. It's not about that. It's just the view of the kid or the teenager, and you know, they realize already at the age of 12, 13, that um, I like soccer quite a bit. Not as much as I like baseball though. But no, yeah, yeah. So I like this is my, it depends. Like parents are confusing, and that is not really and that is not a bad thing at all. If they weren't confusing, they would not be parents. It's not a bad thing to be confusing of all hell, because um I like this sports talk, but that can be I do like it, but I but what I'm trying to get at is, um, parents have the right to be confusing, and kids and teenagers, like depending on what the age is of the kid or teenager, um, to be, you know, seeking out what they would think. You know, like it's the parents. The parents have the right to be confusing, and the kids and teenagers, depending on the age, they have the right to be the confused. The confusees. You know, Question mark. Uh, can I say it like this then? Parents have the right to be confusing. Teenagers, kids have the right to be challenging that confused that those the the uh, the confused parents. No. Okay. Let's take it easy here. Let's not make this like I'm condemning the parents. Parents have the right to be confusing, and teenagers and kids have the right to be challenging the parents. And you know, the teenagers and kids have the right to kind of like come in the middle and say like, you know, parents are confusing. You know, like I mean, why isn't that like I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Having parents that are confusing. In fact, in a lot of ways, I think that's really cool and really healthy to boot. Your dancing is brilliant, my friend. Oh, thank you. It was the best I could do on the spot. Um, but anyway, I probably am just motoring. But but anyway, I think I'm more like a motor milf. I think I'm becoming a motor milf in here. So I'm going to end off with saying, you know, parents would not parents would not be parents if they weren't confusing. You know, like just I think parents are very confusing in a good way. In in a good way because if it weren't for the parents being confusing, you know, if parents were not confusing, there wouldn't be a balance between the parent and your kids. You know, and I think that could be very helpful for anyone who is a kid or teenager. You know, to realize, oh, yeah, I got parents that are confusing, but they're confusing because they care. You know, you know, like I'm gonna think about it. Like I'm gonna think about it. Everybody's parents. Like I'm gonna think about it for a minute. Every kid, every teenager has parents that just like you know. There's no such thing as an unconfused parent. There's no such thing because they give life to their kids, and their kids are nearly just reflecting, and they give life to their kids. And then before you know it, their kids are taking on things of their own, and they want to do, you know, they want to be part of the crowd at school or like whatever, you know. But in the back of their heads, they know who, you know, the higher authority is, you know. So you know, and it's because of that teenagers and parents, you know, kids, teenagers, parents, uh, they can be they like one class is a more like I mean one class is the higher authority figures that have been on the earth longer than we have. You know, you're working today, my friend. Well, I guess in a way I am working to help my YouTube channel. Anyway, I probably made a video that's like 100 miles too long here, but just wanted to give you my view and my I just wanted to give my view, or if not my what goes on in my head on the whole subject of parents and kids and teenagers and how they react to one another. You know, I mean, come on, you gotta play ball. You gotta play ball if you want to become, you know, I mean, you gotta play ball if you want to become a successful football or baseball player. You gotta be able to play ball with the parents, with the siblings, with yourself, and with all the above. You know, you can't play. You cannot play ball if you don't know where the siblings stand, and you definitely can't play ball if you don't know where the parents stand. And and to understand the whole thing of it from the perspective of the kids and teenagers. You know, they, hey, hey. If it weren't for parents being so confusing all the time, sorry, that's a little harsh. That was a little harsh. If it weren't for parents being confusing, kids and teenagers wouldn't have respect for the higher authority. You know, kids and teenagers would not be able to respect their elders if it weren't for their parents not being confusing. And yeah, so you know, just to think about that. Think about that. If it weren't for parents, if it weren't for parents being confusing, kids and teenagers wouldn't have any space between the parent and their bedroom. You know, I mean, think about that for a minute. If it weren't for parents, if it weren't for parents being confusing, teenagers and kids wouldn't have their own set of rules. You know, their own. I just want you to think about that. You know, I, I want you to think about that. Parents, sorry, if parents were not confusing, if they weren't confusing, teenagers, kids would not have. I'm going to repeat this. I'm very sorry for that. Must be getting tired. Um, if if it weren't for parents being confusing and like all of that, kids and teenagers wouldn't be able to have what I like to call what are, you know, if it weren't for parents being confusing, because they are, uh, teenagers and kids and teenagers wouldn't have their own set of regulation. I'm going to say this one last time, and I'm sorry to keep saying it. I feel like Donkey from Shrek, you know, never shutting up. Um, um, what was I saying now? I forgot. Oh yeah, if it weren't, if it weren't for parents being confusing, and they most definitely are confusing. If it weren't for them being, if it weren't for parents being confusing, kids and teenagers would probably have no respect for anybody. You know, because they need confusing parents. They need confusing parents to, like, they need parents to be confusing. like parents are just naturally confusing, and for a kid, um, or a teenager, depending on which of the classes come first, um, they have the right to challenge the rather confused higher authority. They have the right to that they have the right to challenge that higher authority level because they're the lower authority. They're the lower authority learning to be higher authority. They're learning how to be higher authority because of the higher authority. You know, so I'm gonna take a drink of this. Excuse me, pardon me. So okay, I'm relaxed now. Um, so I'm just gonna say it like this: parents are confusing by natural, by like nature, and teenage kids and teenagers, they come under as like that lower class that is climbing up the ladder to becoming the higher authority because they have no idea what that's going to be like when they get there. So, because they have no idea of what that's like until they get there, that's why they're kind of stuck on a mount. That's why they're kind of stuck on a hill of they're trying to figure out their parents. They're trying to understand things about them, and they're quicker to the smart. You know, they're quicker to get to being. They're quicker to realizing the confusement of their parents. You know, they're quicker. They're smarter to pick up on things that their parents um, didn't check in. You know, they're smarter to pick. Teenagers and kids are smarter. I feel because they're smarter than their parents because they're trying to fight authority, and while they're fighting authority, they're learning how to become the higher authority by challenging it. By challenging it, you know, they're learning. They're learning how to get to the higher authority. You know, growing up, they're learning to grow up through challenging their parents and saying no, no, no. I don't want to be parent. I don't want to be like you when I grow up. I want to be like me when I grow up. And so they need to challenge that as kids and teenagers